Hey guys, if you're enjoying the content that I'm making, please click that subscribe button. Also remember to click that bell button and make sure to tick that box to send all notifications so you don't miss out on any videos. With that in mind, let's get on with the video. What's up guys, welcome to Munchkins Gaming, where we take your gaming to the next level. This is Munchkins logging in to bring you another Dissidia Final Fantasy Opera Omnia video. And welcome to my video guide on Deuce's Lost Chapter, and of course this is going to be on the Chaos fight. Now before we do begin with the video, I would just like to gently remind you guys, if you haven't already, to please subscribe to my channel and of course leave a like on this video as well if you do enjoy the contents that I make on this channel. And if you may or may not know, I have reached my 1000 subscriber goal, which I really again thank you to the bottom of my heart, and I really appreciate all the support that you guys have given me throughout these years, or even just in the couple of days or in the couple of weeks that you have subscribed to my channel. Now in regards to the 1000 subscriber, I guess, celebration or video or whatever it may be, I still don't know what I'm going to be doing in regards to that. I have just finished watching the community live stream, which there's a lot of things to go through there as well. Honestly, there's a lot of videos that I need to work on, and with so little time that I don't even have the time to think about, you know, like sit down and actually just think, what do I do for my 1000 subscriber video, and you know, do I do giveaways and such? So if you guys have any you know, suggestions, please leave it down in the comments below as well. But with that in mind, let's start this video. Okay, as always, we'll start off with the weaknesses, the resistances, and the elements that the boss can absorb, and of course its abilities as well. And this time around it's going to be on Count's theme. Now the Count's theme does not have any weaknesses on the Chaos stage. It does however have quite a few resistances. It's double resistance to melee attacks and double resistance to range attacks as well, and it can absorb the fire and the holy element as well. As for its abilities, it has its usual fire attack, which is a fire magic brave attack. This will be a fire raga from level 51 onwards. It has group fire, which is a group fire magic attack, and again it will be a fire raga version from level 51 upwards. It also has counter fire, which counters melee brave attacks with its fire magic brave attacks. This again will have a fire raga version from level 51 upwards, and the counter fire raga actually removes all buffs, and this is including the frame buffs. So even if you have those frame buffs, it's all going to be removed. Next, it has leg, which is a melee HP attack, and next it also has this right/left steam, whichever you want to call it. It's all just the same attack, they just kind of changed the name for it. It's just a magic brave attack. Next is multi slash, which is a melee brave attack plus an HP attack, and next is flame ball, which is a fire magic brave attack, which grants itself an attack up buff. Next up is Steam Burst, which it recovers itself from its break status and will do a group magic brave attack plus group HP attack, which can also inflict an initial brave down. Next, a couple of texts that you may want to pay attention to is Steam is building. This basically raises his speed, attack, and defense. Next is Steam is further building, which removes all the debuffs it has, including frame ones. It also grants elude and raises its speed, attack, and defense, and becomes tough to range and melee attacks, which it already is, and it just makes it a lot stronger. The only thing with Steam is further building, this only happens when you kill one of the bosses. So this acts like an enrage mechanic to a certain extent. Next is Blown Off, which basically cancels the speed, attack, defense boost from the built up Steam. Now, a couple of new text that you will see in the Chaos fight is moving energetically, and this basically raises the attack, defense, speed, initial brave, and its max brave, and moving more energetically is basically just a higher stat increase from the previous one. Now the Count's team is also immune to 2 debuffs, which are speed down and defense down. Alright, so now that we know the weaknesses, the resistances, and the elements that you can absorb, and of course the abilities of the last boss, let's take a look at some general tips and guide. The first one is to save about 70 to 80% of your abilities for the last boss. These bosses do have a lot of HP, and you do need to kill them about the same time, so try to save your abilities as much as you can. Obviously, when you reach there, try to take him down as quick as you can. The next one is to bring in the realized characters such as Deuce, Ace, and Kryl in this case, and of course having their EX plus on these characters will definitely help, and of course if you 3-3 them, it would make the fight significantly easier than if you don't have them at 3-3. Now, other characters that you may want to consider bringing here are, honestly, I have very few because we only have very few magic DPS at this point in time, and of course the only ones that I can recommend are going to be Sarah, Lael, and maybe Terra. Yeah, maybe Terra. Sorry, there's really not much to choose from unless you do wait for Ultimecia, which is in a couple of days. Then you can definitely bring Ultimecia for this fight as well. Hey guys, future Munchkins here. Sorry to interrupt the video midway through, but I just realized that I actually forgot a few characters that you can actually use on this fight as well. The main reason I forgot about them is I hardly use them, and for the most part, I don't know. I'm just being forgetful right now. So the first one is going to be Aerith, which is actually a boosted character. So if you have her EX weapon, I say go ahead and try and use her. She's actually pretty good in terms of healing, so if you need that bulk healing, you can definitely bring her in. And the other one is actually Shantoto, which is a magic based character that got her awakening way back in the very first Crystal Awakening. So those two are definitely going to be helpful. I don't know to what extent Shantoto can be helpful, but she does have the poison debuff that she can apply, so if you're not planning on bringing Sarah, she can probably be a substitute for that. But in any case, I'll get you back to Pasmi, who actually forgot to give you this very important information that can maybe diverse your team a little bit. Now, as for the Healers plus Brave Battery, we do have 2 options here. We have Palom, and of course we have Charlotta. Palom is actually a pretty decent character in this case. There are quite a lot of HP attacks, and you do need a healer to heal those damage through, because one of the requirements for this fight for you to complete is to actually take 0 damage. Now, as for the summon, you only have 2 options, well, maybe 3 if you really want to, but I do recommend Shiva and Ramu. You can also bring a Leviathan for this fight as well. However, I feel like Shiva and Ramu actually are much better summoned than Leviathan, even at level 30. Alright, so now that we have gotten the general tips out of the way, let's take a look at some of the strategy that I have used in order to beat this fight. Let's start off with the friend support. You do have 3 options, I believe, and those being Charlotta, Setzer, and of course Ace. A 3-3 Ace is definitely going to make this fight easier. Charlotta, of course, with her HP bomb as well. If you are planning to bring your own Charlotta for this fight, a double Charlotta is definitely quite effective in terms of dealing AoE damage. Now, Setzer is in a unique place here. Setzer's Freeze Joker is actually a magic-based attack, and you have 3 uses for it. And of course, by the time you use up all 3, his Prismatic Flash, which is his EX ability, it will also fill up. So basically, you can technically use Setzer here in order to avoid those HP damage, especially if you freeze the enemies. It is not immune to freeze, so when it's about to do like an all attack or something, or it's close to that, make sure to use the freeze on them so you won't take any damage regardless of, you know, their steam burst and of course their multi-slash as well. So I haven't played around with a Setzer friend because for whatever reason none of my friends on my friends list actually has Setzer, which I actually wanted to try really badly. Now moving on from that is the second tip or second strategy is to actually use the poison sap or frame debuff that actually works like poison like effect as well. So there are two characters where I mentioned, and those are Sarah and Charlotta's frame debuff, and of course Sarah can inflict poison as well. So having both of these girls in your team will basically reduce most of the time the Count Steam's Brave down to 0. So therefore, you know, you're probably not going to be hit by an HP attack, but I would still highly recommend that you do have enough Brave to survive like a multi-slash, because if you get broken when it uses multi-slash for whatever reason, it didn't use a right steam or a left steam or a flame bowl or whatever the case may be, if it decides to use a multi-slash and you don't have enough Brave, you're still gonna get killed. So just watch out. Even though it will help you reduce the amount of, you know, it makes it easier for you to break them, I guess that's the other thing, you still have to be quite careful with this one. Now the next strategy that I want to talk about is to actually where to use your summon. Now there are two cases where you can use your summon. I propose that you actually use your summon before the two bosses actually buff themselves, because this acts like a soft enrage, because once both of them have buffed up with their steam is building, it's actually pretty hard to get enough turns to actually keep re-breaking them and make sure you survive the double steam burst. So it's a soft kind of like, I feel like it's a soft enrage in a way, because if you let it happen, it's highly likely that you will die. So that's why I highly recommend to actually use your summon before they actually buff themselves. So after one of them buffs themselves at the start of the fight, it will let off the steam after it uses steam burst, and then you'll have a few turns, or actually quite several turns, where, you know, it will just keep attacking you and vice versa. So later on, one of them will actually start to buff themselves, which I think around 50% nearly. When you see them targeting themselves, that's the best way to use your summon. Now the other way is what I've seen is people actually wait until the bosses will do like an all attack, which means it will use steam bursts around that time. Especially when it's buffed itself, it will usually just use steam burst, and people will wait for that all attack, and just before they do the all attack, they will use their summon. So it's up to you whether you want to do it that way, or you just want to like burn the boss down before they actually buff themselves. Now one thing to note, I did notice that they actually don't lose their steam after they even use their steam burst. I'm not sure as to why that is, because usually the steam disappears outpost their steam burst, but I had one instance where they used it and I didn't see the text that, you know, the steam has weared off. So I'm not really sure as to why that is. Maybe it is a chaos mechanic, but that's a bit unfair in my opinion. Now, anyway, let's move on from that and let's take a look at my next tip, which is to try and kill the boss around the same time. Again, there is an enrage mechanic in this one. When one boss dies, the other one will get buff, and it's basically the steam is further building, which it will grant itself elude, so you can't really debuff it anymore, and it also removes all the debuffs that you have applied, and again raising its speed, attack, and defense. So this acts like a enrage mechanic, so that's why I try to kill them right about the same time. Also, one thing to note here is elude is actually permanent, so you can't really take it away. I mean, if you have Ferris, maybe, but I won't even bother trying that. There's no way Ferris can actually be helpful at all in this fight, but that is a permanent buff. It doesn't go, it's framed, but it doesn't have a timer, just so you know. Now the final thing here is obviously luck is again a factor in these early chaos fights. You know, if you can dodge a couple of attacks, it's definitely gonna help you out, you know, later on. If you don't get broken and stuff like that because you dodged the attack, it's really great. So I highly should suggest that you actually do all your summon boards on all the characters that you are going to be bringing, especially for Shiva and Ramuh. They have the evasion passives, so both of them will really be helpful in this fight. Okay, so now that we have the strategy out of the way, let's take a look at some possible party compositions. The first one is going to be your boosted team. Now, it's been a while since I actually just recommended straight out the boosted team, but I know for a fact that you can actually beat this fight with Ace, Deuce, and Aerith, especially if you do have their EX Plus, and of course Aerith's EX weapon is going to help with this as well. This is with an Ace support and with a Shiva summon. I highly recommend Shiva, and for the most part you can definitely use Ramuh as well, but Shiva does give you that extra speed that you may need when the boss's speed are like insanely fast. So I do highly recommend Shiva. It can probably bring Leviathan. They reduce the speed for the bosses by 10%, but I do believe with Shiva, if your initial brave is less than you know, your brave is less than your initial brave, you do get like 15% speed. I can't remember on top of my head, but it's definitely a higher percentage than the, you know, the flat out 10% for Leviathan. So highly recommend Shiva. You can also use Ramuh as well. Now for the next party composition, we have what you guys are seeing here. I did bring Ace with a 0 EX plus limit break, so it is just a realized weapon. I do have Sarah and I have Charlotta. Both of them have their EX. My Sarah again only has 2 perfect curse passive, so it all worked out in the end. I did bring an Ace that is EX plus 3/3, so yeah, that made up a lot of difference for the damage that I was lacking. And this is again with a Shiva support, and basically, you know, I used the strategy that I mentioned, you know, inflicting poison, the frame debuffs that Sarah with her EX, and of course with Charlotta with her HP attack. Now the next one is somewhat surprising, which is Ace, Warrior of Light, and Charlotta. And you guys may have seen, I actually recommended Warrior of Light even though he's not a magic based attacker. This is with a Charlotta support and a Ramuh for summon. Basically the idea here is Warrior of Light will use his throw buckler on the early stages of the fight, so you can clear the mobs a lot faster, obviously with his brave battery as well there. So you're definitely gonna clear those early stages faster, and once you get to the boss, all he has to do is spam Shining Shield and that's all basically he can do. Now there is a funny little tip that I will tell you guys, is if you actually start the fight without shields for everyone, Warrior of Light will only have his HP attack plus version. It's not the plus version. Now the HP attack plus version won't actually hit a brave attack, so you can actually use just an HP attack plus with the fairly early stages of the fight with your Warrior of Light if you want to save at least one turn of your Shining Shield. Of course, if you have the brave for it, that will be ideal, especially you know, if you Brave Battery on your first turn, let's just say with a Charlotta or something, or if you want Sarah instead. So one or the other, but I highly recommend, I would probably recommend Charlotta in this case, because you will need a healer in this fight. So highly recommend doing this strategy. Well, I wouldn't say highly recommend, it is a funny way to do it, or to go around the boss's mechanic. Probably my second recommendation actually for a party composition. I actually tried this out and I could have gotten a clear, but I actually just wanted to do a complete run, so I ended up just resetting, and I didn't manage to get like a full clear run, complete run, sorry, with this one. And this is with a Charlotta support, and again with a Ramuh summon, and again you can put Shiva there if you want. I only put Ramuh here because I feel like Shining Shield will benefit more from Ramuh, because you want to maximize the amount of HP damage that you're going to be getting from Warrior of Light, because he is quite limited in the last wave. Now the final team that I have here for you guys is Ace, Kryle, and Charlotta, and this is with the Ace support and Ramuh summon. Now this is the team that I was actually running with originally, and for the love of God, on my final turn I did not manage to kill the boss before it actually used Steam Burst again. So I would have actually completed this run, like a complete run with this team, but I just didn't have enough HP damage on the last boss. It was in the sliver of HP, and honestly I was like, oh come on, you gotta be kidding me. My Kryle was 2 out of 3 EX plus, and my Ace at that time was, yeah, just EX plus. I mean, I haven't really limit broken my Ace's EX weapon at all, just the normal EX plus. So this was a close call. I actually wanted to get this video out with that team because I wanted to showcase Kryle, but Kryle can definitely bring, carry herself. Obviously in the last few sliver of HP, her damage is going to be atrocious. Her attack isn't actually the best to begin with, so I mean, if you do have Kryle, she's definitely gonna help you. I would probably suggest saving your Rays of Hope towards the end, that way she can just be a battery flat out. She doesn't need to do any Brave plus HP attack, because she's not gonna be doing much. Okay, so we're finally at the end of this video, and of course I'll give you guys my final thoughts on this fight. And before that, honestly, I just want to say these videos are getting longer and longer by the event, because there's so much to talk about, and I just want to condense everything, but there's just so many things to talk about. But anyway, my final thoughts on this fight. Honestly, if I compare this side by side with Fang on the time of their release, I would say Fang's one is a little bit harder in some ways. They're both obviously very hard, but if I have to pick side by side at the time of the release, I would have picked Fang. But if you want to compare these both side by side moving forward, say if you're watching this in the future, this is more of the limiting fight, only because the bosses are obviously double resistance to melee and the range physical attacks. So yeah, moving forward, this is probably the harder fight for most, because if you don't have a mage, basically you can't clear this fight. Whereas with Fang, there's other DPS are a dime a dozen. So, and I do believe the one with Fangs, the bosses don't actually have any resistances, so you can bring both mage and melee or range DPSs or characters. It won't matter much. Now this is obviously harder than the Leviathan Chaos fight, so yeah, that's my own opinion on this matter. Anyway guys, I will leave the video right here or end the video right here. Please remember to click like and subscribe if you haven't already. Remember, there is a new goal to reach 1,200 subscribers by the end of the year, and every click on that subscribe button will definitely help me reach that new goal. Now the other thing is, clicking that like button is actually going to help with YouTube algorithm, make sure this video gets out there and a lot of people come in, and you know, hopefully if they're struggling, this video will help them. And also make sure to follow me on my social media. I am on Facebook and on Twitter at Munchkins Gaming. This is Munchkins logging off, and I'll see you guys in the next level.